Your time today joining us on this call. Oracle negotiations, they can often be quite dramatic and quite confrontational and can lead to folks being really frustrated. And it really doesn't have to be that way. Now, when we talk about Oracle negotiations, we're not just talking about, I've got that deal with Oracle and I need to get it signed before the end of the quarter. And yes, that is an example of a negotiation, but we're negotiating with Oracle all the time. We're negotiating not just price and terms and conditions, but we're negotiating what type of agreements. Are we doing a ULA? Are we not doing a ULA? We're negotiating support renewals. We're negotiating terms and conditions for license assignments and certifications and all of that. So these concepts that we're going to be talking about today can be applied to any of those types of negotiations with Oracle. And the goal here is that you can get out of a negotiation. Obviously, if you're negotiating with Oracle, you're going to continue to do business with them. So you don't want to be in a position where we're burning all the bridges. So we want to be a strong position where we can negotiate from that position of strength, but then also have a relationship with Oracle after the fact, so not burn all those bridges. And I'm excited to have our panelists with me today. So Allison Adams, Senior Director here at Palisade. Allison and I have been working together for many years. She spent 20 years at Oracle, and for most of that time, she was responsible for crafting Oracle's support renewal policies. And also joining me today would be Fredrik Filipsson, our EMEA Sales Director. Fredrik spent many years, 9 years at Oracle, selling licenses. So a great resource to talk about negotiation and a lot of experience from the Oracle side. There will be opportunities for questions, as Jen said, and we'll also have a couple of poll questions. But before we get into the actual seminar, I'll just give you two commercial slides for Palisade. Palisade, we've been in business now for 7 years. We are the leading independent provider of Oracle licensing and contracting and compliance services. So we are 100% independent of Oracle. We're not pro-Oracle. We're not anti-Oracle. We really work 100% for our clients. Over 300 clients around the world, and we've probably helped with over $300 million in negotiations just over the last 12 months. So tons and tons of experience helping customers get into new arrangements with Oracle. These are the services we provide. I'm not going to bore you with details on all this, but again, it's a host of services all around Oracle. We don't do anything else except Oracle, so we don't help with Microsoft or SAP or anything like that. So that is the end of the Palisade commercial. And now let's get into our agenda. We do want to start off understanding Oracle, and then I'll pass it off to Fredrik, and he will talk about how to gain leverage over Oracle in your negotiations. And then Allison will take it from there and talk about negotiation strategies. We'll go a level deeper. And then finally, we'll wrap it up and take any of your questions, and we'll try to answer them. But before we get into understanding Oracle, Jen, can you bring up our first poll question? So first question is, what are you trying to achieve with your Oracle negotiation? And please pick any of them that apply. Do you want better terms, better pricing? Are you trying to reduce your risk, simplify your invoicing, reduce your annual spend with Oracle, simpler contracts? We'll give folks a minute. And this will also help us, your feedback here will help us guide the conversation today. How are we looking, Jen? All right, there we go. So when I look at this, no surprise. The number one issue when we work with a client, almost on any type of engagement, is I need to reduce my annual spend with Oracle. They are too expensive. So this is just in keeping with that. And then better terms and conditions, which makes me happy because we're always pushing terms and conditions, and sometimes they're more important than pricing. So pricing is important, but I'm glad to see it wasn't number one here. Allison, any thoughts on this? Fredrik, any thoughts on these results?
No, I'm not surprised over that annual maintenance spend is number one. I'm assuming happy that better terms and conditions is of interest because this is what this presentation is about. Interesting.
Okay. Excellent. And we are also doing Gartner event next week, and we're going to be talking at the Gartner event the top 10 ways to reduce your Oracle spend. So, and that'll be available to the general public as well eventually. So, look out for that. Okay. First thing I want to review is Oracle. So we're going to spend a few minutes talking about Oracle, and then we're going to talk about the client. But in order to understand how to win a negotiation with any vendor, you need to understand that vendor. So let's just talk a little bit about Oracle. And I want to talk about how Oracle makes money. These numbers here, it's a rolling 12 months, and it stops in March of 2018. So the year before, here's how Oracle made their money. And I'll go into a second why we stopped in March. But Oracle basically has three big buckets. There's 5 buckets, but there's 3 big ones. And the ones we're concerned about here are cloud, on-prem license, and on-prem support. They also make money selling hardware, and they make money selling consulting services. And those are really the 5 buckets of stuff that Oracle sells. But when you look at these 3 big buckets, on-prem support, that's, you buy a license, you spend $1, you spend €1, you give 22 cents after that every year in perpetuity, and it goes up 3% a year. So that's the big number. So it's almost a $20 billion business. In fact, now, since this is a couple of quarters old, it is a $20 billion business. And when we get into that a little bit more, that $20 billion business, it's 95% pure profit. So you give Oracle $20 billion and they put $1 billion into that business, the other 19 billion goes into Oracle's pocket, and it funds everything else the company does. So this number and the next number we'll see, the most important numbers for Oracle. When we're thinking about negotiations, this, by the way, is the number you're trying to reduce. The number one response was reduce maintenance spend. That's this number. So everything Oracle does is to prevent you from reducing that number. It's just as simple as that. So in order to reduce it, you sort of have to get through all of the defenses that Oracle puts up to that number. The next number we want to look at is cloud. So Oracle, if you talk to Oracle, everything they talk about is cloud. They're even releasing new versions of database to their Oracle Cloud first. Even though you're giving them $19 billion a year for support, those customers are now second in line to customers who are running Oracle database in Oracle's cloud. So the other thing here, it's a very healthy margin for cloud, it's 58%, but it's nowhere near 95%. So as Oracle shifts from an on-prem license company and tries to move to the cloud, their margins will go down from 95% to 58% if they take $1 of support and move it to $1 of cloud. So while you're trying to reduce that $1 of support, Oracle is trying to take that $1 of support and turn it into $2 of cloud so that they're made whole and make more. So again, there's a conflict into what you're trying to accomplish and what they're trying to accomplish. And that's not surprising. That's true with any vendor. You always want to spend less with your vendors and they always want you to spend more. So the thing with Oracle and sort of the flashpoint here is that we're not talking a few dollars, we're talking millions at times and maybe even 100 million a year for Oracle's largest customers. So I mentioned that we stopped reporting on this in Oracle's Q3 in March of this year, and the reason is Oracle changed how they report. They don't break out license and support and cloud the way they used to. They've sort of jumbled them all together into different buckets, so there's literally no way to tell by looking at Oracle's earnings announcement how much is for cloud, how much is for license, and how much is for support. Oracle claims they're doing that for revenue recognition purposes and contracts purposes. Obviously, they don't tell me, and I can't see behind the curtains there, but we haven't seen any evidence of that in their contracts that would prevent them from announcing different buckets, but perhaps there's different standards they have. So, that's sort of the financial piece of Oracle. Big macro Oracle. Now let's talk micro Oracle. The man or woman who's sitting on the other side of the table, again, understand that how they get compensated. So those folks are compensated cloud, 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 and then cloud. So you want to know that because if you want to buy some licenses for on-prem, they're always going to put a cloud deal in front of you. So the more leverage you have with Oracle, the better you'll be able to mitigate that not have to do the cloud deal versus buying something that you're never going to use. So understand that your sales rep, what they get paid on, understand there's a lot of new sales reps. So Oracle is, I don't know if it's a youth movement, but they are taking their field reps and putting them in big centers. So in the US, there's a big center in Austin, Texas. So they're hiring a lot of new people. It's like a college university campus almost. So lots of new people are coming to sell you these really complicated offerings. So they're going to have less experience. And I think the negotiation, and we're already seeing this, it's just they're going to follow a script and say, no, we can't do that. No, we can't do that. And it's important for Oracle's customers to be educated on why Oracle can do that and sort of push Oracle so that they do that. So really understand, if you can understand Oracle mindset, I think that'll put you in a good position to understand when to push and when not to push. And then finally, Oracle strategy for the year is, I mentioned cloud, and I'm sorry I keep saying that word, but Oracle keeps saying it, so I can't undervalue how, even if you don't want to use Oracle's cloud, if you're talking to Oracle, they are going to talk to you about it, right? So it's something to have to prepare for. Oracle's broken out their cloud into SaaS and infrastructure as a service. And the really interesting thing here is, a couple of years ago, Oracle was talking about renting database licenses. And now they're talking about bringing the database license you've already bought to Oracle's cloud. So Oracle's already shifted how they've positioned in the market. I think it's because of all of you who have said, you know, we want to use what we already bought. We don't want to convert the support fee into cloud credits. We want to keep what we have. So in the last two earnings announcements, Larry Ellison has basically said, we love ULAs. In fact, we love them so much, we want to do perpetual ULAs. And customers, and his words, the vast majority, those are his words, of clients who use Oracle Infrastructure Cloud will bring their own license. And then the last thing we're seeing is Oracle's moves around Java. As they've changed the rules and how they distribute, they're closing the window on your usage of Java in a free capacity. And at some point, I think that window will shut completely. And if you want to use Java in certain circumstances, you'll have to pay for it, pay for the maintenance to get patches and updates and different versions of that. So that's the background that we have on Oracle. So now I'm going to hand this off to Fredrik. And Fredrik, why don't you take it from here?
Okay. Fredrik. So gaining leverage over Oracle. I'm going to talk broadly about what you can do and what steps in order to gain leverage when you negotiate with Oracle. Next slide. So the first thing you should think about is to stay in compliance with your agreement. Why is that important? That is important because when you go to Oracle and are looking at buying anything, coming from being at Oracle sales for a lot of years, one of the first thing an Oracle salesperson is thinking is, why are they buying these licenses? And often they suspect that there's a sort of non-compliance, that you are actually going to buy and buy cheaper. And if you would, for example, say no to a proposal from Oracle, you might be audited the week after. And that is something that happened to one of our clients not long ago. They said no to an Oracle offer, and then 1 week later they get an Oracle audit offer. So you would be having a much stronger negotiation position if you feel confident that you are compliant with your licenses and agreements. Next. So this is a very good example of what can happen if you are not in compliant with your existing licenses. So I don't know if many of you are familiar with this, but this is Denver City. You can Google this and you can read online. Denver City was audited by Oracle in 2016, and they were found non-compliant, $4 million. And what happened was that Oracle sales gave them two options. So all of this is online. Denver City has a policy of full transparency. So you can read all of the emails between Oracle and the customer and follow the audit and whatever sort of Oracle said in emails and what the customer replied. But Oracle sales give Denver City two options. Option one, which you can see is a ULA without cloud subscriptions. And you can see it's a $4.5 million offer. And option 2 is a ULA with cloud subscription. And you can see that the price is 4.1. So if Denver City would have been in compliant with their agreements, they would not, they could have signed a ULA for 1.3 million. They didn't need to buy the cloud. And it's pretty obvious that Oracle simply sold the cloud services here as a way of maximizing their compensation. So if Oracle finds out that you're non-compliant, you're starting off from the worst possible negotiation position. And I often think that if I think back of all my years at Oracle, the vast majority of the transactions that I was engaged in had some sort of non-compliance component. So if you can sort of eliminate that weakness, if you can eliminate that weakness, you're going to have a much better negotiation position.
Yeah, and Fredrik, just to add on to that, in this case, obviously, if the customer was in compliance, they wouldn't have bought anything from Oracle, right? They would have been at zero cost. But in this case, I think the telling thing is that from the email traffic back and forth, City of Denver didn't want the cloud, and Oracle pitched it as you turn it off after the first year. So literally just buy it to make this audit go away. So here's a great example of this customer spent $1.7 million on cloud. And if you look at the 5-year TCO, that cloud spend is gone. So obviously they didn't renew in year 2 and year 3. That's how Oracle pitched it, as only $4.1 million. If this client used cloud over the course of the 5 years, it would have been like $8 million. So here even Oracle is saying, just buy it for a year to make this issue go away.
So my next point is optimize existing investments. So that could be, for example, that you're optimizing your licensing, that you are optimizing the infrastructure underneath where you have deployed Oracle. Potentially, you don't need to buy any licenses if you do that. But it will also, if you do the first one, stay in compliance and then optimize what you have, I think the most likely result is that you probably don't need to buy any more of those licenses if you have that product already. Have an alternative to Oracle. So that's not only about having a technical alternative or a technical solution to Oracle software. It's also, if you can create that you don't have to sign Oracle's sort of ULA renewal, you will have a much stronger negotiation position. And I will show that on the next slide. So at the top here, you see a customer that have a ULA, and they have different options when it comes to Oracle ULA. If they would decide to renew year 1, they would pay $7 million in license fees, and the new support will be 22% out of that, and the existing support will be 1.1 million. And the total cost of ownership for the ULA is almost $15 million. However, if you look at if you would like to certify this ULA, which you can do by optimizing your existing ULA, you take advantage to install as much Oracle software as possible, create a license buffer so that you don't need to renew the ULA, then you don't pay that $7 million in license fees. You don't pay that new support. And the total cost of ownership is only 3.5 million. And there's another way here as well, is if you are very confident in your license position earlier when Oracle comes with your renewal offer, you have a much stronger negotiation position if you know that you're compliant. Because many of our customers are actually renewing their Oracle ULAs because they don't know if there's a non-compliant. And at the end of the ULA, Oracle will do sort of a soft audit of their environments, and most likely they find substantial non-compliance. Then you have the option as well to go to a third-party support provider, and the total cost of ownership would be 1.6 million. So that is one way how you can optimize what you currently have before you go to purchase new products from Oracle. So use Oracle's financial quarters to your advantage. I like to say that Oracle, anyone who's negotiated with Oracle have probably heard this price or this discount or this contract is only valid until the end of the quarter. Well, I've been at Oracle. I can tell you that the same price, the same terms can be offered in the next quarter. So I think at the end of the year, Oracle's offer will be the best. And the reason for that is because the sales rep, he doesn't know if he's going to have you as a customer at the end of the year. And his commission could be doubled because he's already reached his target. So it could be, if you are going to buy something, it could be a very good time to buy at the end of the year. But don't sign it because Oracle wants you to sign it. You should only sign the deal if it's right for your company. Thank you.
Okay, so we'll hand off now to Allison Adams, and she'll talk about negotiation strategies.
Thanks, Craig. Thanks, Fredrik. So we will start with a quick poll as we head into this next section. So what we'd like to know is sort of what you would consider to be your top negotiation challenges with Oracle. So there's several things listed here. It's not an all-inclusive list, but it certainly covers some sort of main themes in terms of what some of those challenges are in the day-to-day negotiations with Oracle. So I'll give it a minute while folks answer. Thank you. And so thank you for this feedback, because I will speak to many of these issues in the next section that we're talking about with respect to that, but this gives me some focus points. And so I think complex licensing and contracting models, as we see here, is a top one. But it's quickly followed by a couple of other ones, which is really about unwillingness to renegotiate terms and pricing, and certainly with respect to support as well. So thank you for the feedback there, because it's very helpful as we go into the next section. So next slide, please. So here's some day-to-day, as I work with Palisade clients on a daily basis, these are common themes that I provide to those clients with respect to how to negotiate with Oracle, what are some best practices that you can do. So, and again, this is not in any particular order of importance, these are all important items, but let's start with the any Oracle agreement is highly negotiable. What's important about that is that we've seen a trend, and I've seen this trend with my clients, especially in the cloud space, where Oracle will present a contracting document and they will say, basically take it or leave it. It's not negotiable, you can't do any of that. That is not the case. So any document that you get with respect to a contracting document with Oracle is definitely negotiable, whether or not the sales rep indicates that to you as well. So please be mindful of that, and that's important to do. A couple of the other things as well is around Oracle's timing and how Oracle often likes to control and dictate the timing. A lot of that is tied to many of the things we've already talked about, the end of a quarter, other pieces of how the rep is compensated, whether or not they want to bring the deal in now or later based on how their compensation is going for the year. So they will often dictate that. They're very good and firm about setting forth things that you need to comply with respect to those timelines. However, it's really important that you set up those timelines with Oracle and take control of that timeline. And one of those things that happens quite a bit is, and it's on both sides, meaning both Oracle as well as a client of Oracle's or a customer of Oracle's, is around the focus on pricing and discounting. Very important things to do. But a general tack that Oracle will follow is they will present to you all kinds of spreadsheets and PowerPoints that really talk about the value proposition from a pricing perspective. And while that's very important, what is also equally important are the contract terms. So what they give you in terms of pricing and discounting, you do want to negotiate that, but you want dual paths there. You also want to get the contract terms, because contract terms mean quite a bit. You can negotiate a very good discount, but you may have the incorrect customer definition subsequently. So terms and conditions are really equally important. So it's important to get Oracle on its own timeline, especially if they are going to push for, say, their end of quarter deal. You want to make sure you have time to do that. What Oracle typically will do is they will give you the pricing and the discounting information, and then at some point they'll wait, and then they'll present to you the contract very late in the game. And you want to have those terms. You want to be able to have time internally to review those. It's also important terms are important, as I just spoke about. You want to make sure that at the time of purchase, you're thinking through different things. And some of that gets into the next bullet as well. It's really thinking about the licensing and services model is what you need. Oracle, again, will often propose to you the model that they want to sell to you. It doesn't mean that that's necessarily the best model for you. So Oracle has a number of different models. You want to make sure you're thinking about your needs, you're thinking about the pros and cons. So let's just talk about ULA, for example, has a lot of pros to it. Your business is growing, you're going to deploy, you don't want to really manage that. So say for a 2 or 3 year period, you have the unlimited ability to deploy that. There's another piece to that, and there's actually several pieces to that, but one is important with respect to the responses we saw today is around support. What Oracle does in many of those agreements is lumping all the support together. So when you do a ULA with Oracle, for example, you will be rolling in existing licensing. So if you had transactional-based licensing for a database, for example, you're doing a ULA, you're going to roll those licenses in. Oracle will do what they will call sort of a converted and replace, which is essentially taking that away. But they don't remove the support associated with that. So if you were paying $100,000 for the database, the support for database, that will follow through into the ULA. Obviously then, for the purposes and the pleasure of using the ULA, Oracle will charge additional incremental license fees and associated support. So as you can see, over time, what happens is then the support gets bundled into that. I don't mean for that to offset the benefits of the ULA, but again, just understanding that obviously in a transactional situation, you buy what you need. And so that's a situation where you're not lumping in the support, for example. It might be something that might be important to you. But from a transactional perspective, it might be, our footprint in Oracle is going to be this for a period of time. It's relatively stable. What we would recommend in this particular case is just making sure you're kind of forward purchasing so you can lump the purchases together to generate higher discounting and a better leverage perspective from both a discounting and a terms perspective. The other piece that's really important as well too is really organizing your internal team. And I speak to my customers daily about this, and it's something that happens, and Oracle is very good at being at various layers within your organization, and there's nothing wrong with that. But you want to make sure that if you are going to negotiate with Oracle, you're thinking of doing a purchase, or Oracle has approached you in considering doing a purchase, that you get the team together, the stakeholders, the folks that are kind of be thinking about that purchase, and making sure there's a consistent message back to Oracle. Oracle is certainly good at getting different. They'll ask a DBA for some information. They'll get some insight into that. It is reasonable and for folks to want to give and expected that you want to give a fair answer to that question, but a lot of times that information is being utilized to your disadvantage. So again, it's really important to align all of those pieces, align the players together, have that consistent message. One of the things that we often will talk to our customers about is maybe having a single point of contact. It's a single person that's talking to Oracle. And, we can certainly, there are different ways you can do that. Maybe someone within the procurement organization. So that person essentially is sort of doing the gatekeeping of that piece of it. And then again, the final bullet here is around Palisade specifically. We've created a fairly robust playbook, negotiation strategies, not only for on-premise, but for cloud transactions as well. Those include checklists of key items that you should definitely ask for with Oracle. And certainly too, we work with each client individually just to make sure that we put that in the right order based on their specific circumstances. Next slide. So what can you do before you even start negotiating with Oracle? And this is equally important as all of the things I spoke about previously. This is sort of the homework that you will do just to make sure you're kind of understanding and coming to the table within that negotiation with Oracle with sort of having completed the pieces of the homework and understanding that. Reviewing all of your contracts, it's very, very important. And it's understood that if you've been purchasing from Oracle for many years, for example, you may not have all the pieces of paper, but certainly get in the habit and practice of keeping all of that Oracle paper. It's really important to look at what you've done before because you can take a look at how you've been purchasing with Oracle. You can identify risk areas. Those might be areas where maybe your corporate structure has changed over time. So it's something that obviously a prior order with Oracle did not necessarily contemplate, but because there have been changes in your corporate structure, or there might be changes in your corporate structure in the future that you want to identify, address those risks. So it's very good to look at the past history, just to determine, kind of evaluate what those risks are. And then when you move forward in your negotiation, then you can also bring forth and try to close out those risks, mitigate those risks, as well as identify new contract terms that you need for the future. So there's a whole host of things that you can ask for. And when I talk to my clients, we put forth a whole host of opportunities and possibilities that you can ask for. And that way we can identify basically what's the priority based on your individual circumstances. You also want to review your commercial history, which would be really around your discounting. So it sets realistic expectations. So a lot of customers over time, they've purchased a long time with Oracle. They may or may not know what the discounting is. They may not have been a part of those prior negotiations. So it's good homework practice to go in, take a look at those discounts, kind of determine where the patterns are. And you will see Oracle discounts in different ways, but you also see probably some trends with respect to that. It doesn't mean that if you feel you had a lower discount, you can't ask for a higher discount, but it does give you a realistic starting point, so you kind of know where you need to go from forward on any new deal with Oracle. You also want to question and talk to your internal stakeholders, IT staff, folks and specifically who may have contact with Oracle, and this gets back sort of to the previous slide around that sort of single focus and message. You want to understand, essentially what conversations have been had. How much does Oracle, know or not know about your deployment, your future plans, and all of that. It gives you a really good understanding of what's been exposed or communicated with Oracle, so that you can find ways whether or not, it may not be an issue, but it might be something that you want to kind of address as well. And then finally, it's really around external research. Go ahead and, ask your peers, a fellow CIO, someone at another corporation, obviously independent consultants, so I'll put a plug there for Palisade, just really to understand, what is negotiable, what is not, what is changing. Oracle is changing in many ways, but there are many things that always stay the same. So you just want to make sure you're understanding sort of the key things that you should be thinking about as you approach that negotiation with Oracle. And that's it for me.
Excellent. Thank you, Allison and Fredrik. Both, yeah. It's amazing the different results we see for clients who sort of take these strategies, and number one, make sure they're in compliance and optimize their licenses. We had one client, came to us very proud that they negotiated this agreement with Oracle, and I think it was around a 75% discount for the products that they received. And they asked me, did we get a good deal? And my question sort of back to them was, well, did you have to buy this stuff anyway? I mean, did you really need all this stuff? Because they were buying additional database licenses. So it turns out they didn't. If they had deployed a little differently and optimized their licensing, they didn't have to buy any of that. So yes, on the surface, a 75% discount may seem good, but if you rather spend zero, that's a way to avoid that maintenance bill from going up and up. So really good insight here. I think, when you think about negotiating with Oracle or just taking back control in general, I look at it as a big, continuum. It's a big circle. And you can get into that circle and get on that merry-go-round at any point. There isn't one place to start. So if you are at the end and you're currently negotiating with Oracle and you've done everything else sort of suboptimally, you're out of compliance and you don't have any technical alternatives and you sort of have to do, but just then managing that negotiation process as best you can and not letting Oracle sort of dictate the pace and hand you terms and conditions on November 23rd for signature by the end of the quarter, right? So making sure you've got the right process. If you're at a different point and you've already negotiated something with Oracle, maybe you signed it in May, now it's about staying in compliance with what you have and finding alternatives. You know, if you're a complete red stack and we only use Oracle database and we only use Oracle apps and we're only going to use Oracle Cloud, you just lose leverage. And I'm not saying you shouldn't do that. You just have to understand that your support bill, that number you're all trying to get down, that is never going to go down as long as Oracle is your only option, and what Oracle wants you to do is your only option. So it's a matter of, you know, where do you want to push and sort of, okay, it's easy to go all in with Oracle from a technology standpoint, but that's really expensive. And for some companies, that'll be okay. For others it won't. So those are the last slides we have, and I think we can open it up. We've got some time for questions. So Jen, has any questions come in through the chat?
Yes, we've had a few questions, so I'll read them off. And just to remind everyone, just click on the Q&A button if you'd like to ask anything at this time. So the first question is, I've already been negotiating with Oracle and they haven't budged. How can I get a better price?
Who wants that? Allison, do you want that one?
Sure, I'll take that one. So that's a great question, and it's a common scenario that we see with Oracle. So I think, you know, essentially speaking, is to keep at that with them. And, you know, obviously I don't know what your leverage points are. I don't know the specifics if it's something you need to do. Again, you see different behaviors with Oracle, and it's some of that's driven just by maybe the sales culture. Some of it's been by the internal processes at Oracle as well too. But essentially speaking, you want to make sure that you're keeping that pressure on Oracle, setting forth those timelines. You will see a difference towards the ends of those quarters. You will see that there are oftentimes situations where Oracle suddenly will wake up. They haven't budged for some weeks. Again, you want to make sure that you're keeping them on a timeline that works best for you. But also remember that you also want the deal that's best for you. So don't let the Oracle quarter ends drag, you know, make you buy that deal that you didn't actually need at that point in time. Because as Fredrik talked to you earlier, that deal will again, you know, be available to you on December 1st. So you want to make sure that you're, you know, consistently putting that pressure on Oracle, but also to managing to get the deal that you need in the time that you need it.
Fredrik, you were in sales. Thank you, Allison. Fredrik, you were in sales for many years, and if you had a customer and you weren't budging, what would get you to budge?
Difficult. Well, at the end of the year, I would say there was a saying. One of my colleagues at Oracle, he said, "We are all on a one-year contract." Because 1st of June, you don't know if you have that customer anymore. But I would think, if I want to give some sort of more tactical advice, if, for example, if I would be negotiating and you are the customer and you're asking for 75% discount, and I said, no, it's quite not possible, 65 is the most, I think you as a customer should say, we went with Microsoft or some other platform vendor. And then basically you as a customer can come back, you call the Oracle salesperson in 6 months and you say, well, we're choosing between Oracle and Microsoft here. What's the best price you can give us? That could possibly, just a small tactic that can give you results.
That's good advice. I think, you know, when I see Oracle not budging, and again, going back to the leverage points that you may have with Oracle, if you have all the leverage and it's not a question of you have to have this software, but you want this software, then you just don't sign the deal. You know, eventually Oracle gets to the point where nobody, this customer isn't buying the value we're selling here, so we need to lower the price or put in more stuff for them. to make it more valuable to them. So if you're in compliance, and as Fredrik said, you have an alternative to that product, and it could be, I'm moving to Microsoft, or you know what, I'm not going to buy more Oracle database because I'm going to, use less virtualization. So I'm going to avoid some risk here as far as Oracle licensing goes, or whatever the answer is. But the biggest thing you can get Oracle to do to budge is not sign what they're putting in front of you, right? And if you have to sign it, you're going to have limited ability to move Oracle. Jen, next question.
Yes, so we did get a question about a link to the recording, so I will be sending that out to everyone tomorrow. And then the next question is, we're attempting to reduce and clean up an Oracle application portfolio. Rather than allow us to drop or reduce support, they're pushing us to migrate existing portfolio to new product suites. I'm hesitant that will cost money versus reducing.
Allison, I think this is right up your alley.
I get to answer again. Yeah, so I think you want to be mindful. Oracle is certainly not necessarily in the business, as Craig spoke to earlier on in this conversation, around reducing support. So it's really a challenging thing to do. So if you can do and identify areas where you're cleaning up that environment, you're determining that there might be things that you're not using, there might be some possibilities to make some adjustments on your own. Now, you have to be mindful of the traps of Oracle support policies, which most folks know about around matching service level and all of that. But the push to this new deal is generally just a way, essentially it's not a like for like, it's usually a like for like plus. So essentially it usually means tying you into some more support dollars as well, because there'll be some new things in there and functionality Oracle will always charge for. So you can take a look internally to look at your options, again, with respect to other support providers. If it's a stable, set of applications, it might be something, again, I don't know the particulars, but if it's something that you've had for a while, it's been stable, you can look at sort of third-party support providers and other ways to kind of reduce the support as well.
Thank you. Thank you. Jen, do we have any more?
We do. We have a few more. So one is how to negotiate database contracts.
Well, I'll take that one. I think that's all the stuff we talked about today. The tips and hints here are geared for any Oracle negotiation, including database. One thing I'll throw extra in here is, when you're negotiating any type of license with Oracle, but we see it mostly with database, is there is a desire, obviously, to get the price down as far as possible. And one of the levers that Oracle has, and often it's Oracle's customers that are requesting this, is they'll take a license, say, Oracle says, we want €1 million for this. And the customer says, well, I only want to give you 800,000. And Oracle will say, great, we will make it a limited use license. So we'll take this full use database licenses that you could pretty much use to do anything, and we'll make it so that it can only run these 2 applications. And at the time, it seems like a good deal, but I would be mindful of that and be careful of that, because you're giving away a ton of value. The fee for a limited use database is significantly lower. And we see time and time again where, yes, you might have gotten the price point you wanted with your database negotiation, but 2 years down the road, when you have these databases sitting in a big vCenter and you have multiple applications running on them, there's no way to technically manage the limited use restrictions that you put in your contract. So just be careful with database contracts in particular that you are not creating more pain for yourself, solving an issue today, but creating a bigger issue the next day. Jen?
Great. So we have just a couple more. The next question is, have you seen any successful approaches to managing all of the policies, documents, and URLs incorporated by reference in Oracle agreements and ordering documents that Oracle states will supersede the negotiated agreement?
So Allison, I'm going to look at you again. Sorry.
No, actually, that's an excellent question, and thank you for asking that, because We have a lot of customers. Again, the pieces of paper, as I refer to it, especially in the cloud space. Oracle has complicated that, several fold. So in terms of things that change, there are things that you can do. You can incorporate, in the cloud space. I'll just use as an example. A lot of URLs, a lot of service descriptions, a lot of things subject to change. One of the things that we always advise customers to include in those agreements is really the actual document itself. So even though it may be subject to change and it's difficult at some point, Oracle does include that no material reduction or no change in functionality. That does provide you certain protections. But because it's always a moving target, especially in cloud, that's where it's most problematic, is really just incorporating those within the contract itself. So you have one document. If it's 100 pages, that's what it needs to be. Oracle will agree to do that. They do not do it as a matter of standard course, but it is something that they do, and we see that all the time. So that's really one way to manage to the particulars around kind of all the pieces of paper and the documentation.
Excellent. Fredrik, when you were in Oracle sales, did you have many instances where your customers were asking you about those extra documents and negotiating them or trying to do different things with them?
No, not really. And I have to go back to when I was at Oracle, I simply did as Allison described earlier, negotiating in an Excel spreadsheet with the pricing and discounting, and then provided the customer with an ordering document, usually the day it has to be signed, really. So this is not something I've seen at all, actually.
And that's not surprising, right? That's by intention, by design, that you get this document to sign, you take out your pen, and it's got all these URLs in it, and you link to those URLs. So I would just encourage folks there's language in your contract that talks about what is part of the agreement and what is not part of the agreement. And it's a little different by country or by region, but the basics are the same. And it basically says if it's in the contract or if it's a URL that's in the contract, then it's part of the agreement. Anything else outside of the contract doesn't count. And that's what your contract says. So you've got things like technical support policies, which if you read your license agreement, there's a URL. You can click on it and it brings you to the tech support policies. But then the tech support policies have URLs that you can click into. And then that thing has a URL, and that thing has a URL. As a matter of fact, Oracle changed a policy on one of their websites, which basically said that if you download a patch from Oracle, you have to run it, you have to install it and use it in 90 days. And customers were coming to us because they were worried about that. Hey, we keep an inventory of patches and updates, and do we really have to do this? And it was on a website, in a link that was in your contract. So it was so far removed from the contract. And then Oracle actually started sending out letters from their legal department to customers who were downloading stuff. And but it's completely made up, right? You could get to Palisade Compliance's website probably by going to Oracle's website and clicking enough links, right? So how far does that go? So we always, initially advise our clients, look at the four corners of your contract and look at any URLs that are in there. Anything else is just stuff Oracle makes up. So their virtualization policies, their licensing Oracle in the cloud policies, none of that's in the contract, and it even says it's not in the contract. So this is probably the biggest challenge right here, this question, and it causes the most confusion. Oracle has every ability to make this clear and concise, and for whatever reason, you can determine the reason they choose not to. So I think, Jen, maybe we have time for one more question.
Sure. How do you recommend negotiating virtual contracts with Oracle, given they don't recognize VMware partition?
Well, I'll take the lead on this one, and I just mentioned it in my previous answer that Oracle's policies on soft partitioning, hard partitioning, I call them made up. They're ephemeral, they're out there, they're not part of the agreement, and it's up to the client. They have so much power in this situation. So if I was advising you and you were not under audit and you were very risk averse, I would say, listen, let's get a technical solution here, an architecture that is in compliance with these crazy policies Oracle has, because you don't want to fight Oracle. Now, if you were in the middle of an audit and Oracle pulled out these policies and said, these apply, I would be the first person to jump up and down and say, absolutely not, they're not part of the contract, yada, 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 and we would go down that path. So this is, there's an art to Oracle licensing and there's a science to Oracle licensing. One thing that is pretty firm is Oracle is really hesitant to put anything concrete in their contracts around virtualization. And again, they can't. They're in a tough spot. They've made billions of dollars auditing their customers and finding problems because of virtualization. And any changes they make now is going to make a lot of their existing clients even angrier at them. So it's a really good problem to have, to make all this money and not being able to change course because you're just making more money. But it is a problem Oracle's having, and it's bleeding into their cloud business because again, Oracle has these, and I call them made up policies around using Oracle in the cloud, but they're not in your contract. When I say they're made up, I mean they're not in your contract. But the Oracle tries to apply different rules for running in AWS or Azure versus the Google Cloud or IBM's cloud or what Oracle calls non-authorized. So it's really important to understand what those rules are beforehand, understand your risk tolerance. Some of those things Oracle just won't put in the contract. We've seen, and again, as Allison mentioned before, we have sort of a metric of terms that we get negotiated, but cloud contracting is one of them. We want to make sure those things are in the agreements. But virtualization, that's always been a tough one. So it's really important that you understand Oracle's rules. If you are going to be in a position where you want to eventually fight Oracle at some point and sort of disagree with them, you need to have really good records to make sure that you can prove that Oracle instances have not moved to hosts that are not licensed. And in those cases, it'll still be a fight, but you could win that argument. All right, so we're going to wrap it up here. I want to thank everyone for your time today. Fredrik, thank you for all your work putting this together and for presenting. Allison, thank you for the great presentation today and answering all those questions. I appreciate both of you. Jen, thank you for your time setting up and organizing this. And I think we have another webinar coming at the end of November. So if you've enjoyed this one, please stick around. You'll get an email for the next one around Oracle ULAs. And then if you want more information from us, please feel free to visit us on the website, send us an email, follow us on LinkedIn and Twitter. We've got lots of information on and white papers on negotiating with Oracle. And even we're going to release a new one in the next couple of weeks, top 10 ways to reduce your Oracle spend. So I think folks on this call will be very interested in that one. So thank you all and have a great day.